Welcome back to Wednesday Wisdoms. So, as promised, today we are going over how you can purchase a home for the same or less than you would put down to get into a new rental. Now, I am going to get to that. I promise it was not a lie, but I want to run through some other stuff first. So obviously, elephant in the room, if you are anywhat familiar with the Chattanooga market, it has just been increasing and increasing and increasing. Things are getting a little crazy. So great news if you're selling or if you're a landlord, but if you are a first-time home buyer, it can be a little bit discouraging. We definitely understand that. If you know me personally, my husband and I did buy our first house this year. It will still sting a little bit, especially if you're trying to be extremely financially conscious and are renting something that you probably wouldn't want to buy. So we'll start there. Definitely do anticipate a little bit of a payment shock if you're like us and your rental is something that you're just willing to live with, but not something that you would want to actually own or be in long term. So with that, standard of living, I would say adjustment upward, you are going to see some increase in price. If you're looking for something straight across the board similar, you may not encounter that quite as much, or maybe not at all. I'm also not going to touch on payment prices, only because I do think it's really important in this industry to stay in your lane. I am not a lender. The rates fluctuate constantly, and what your rate is going to depend on your overall buyer portfolio. So I really can't touch on that, but if you're interested in what your payment would look like at each price point, I can definitely get you with a lender and facilitate that. So again, elephant in the room as far as the Chattanooga market is things are going up and they're not coming down. And that's not just housing prices. As far as purchasing goes, it is a double-edged sword on both renting and buying. So we did see an increase. I'm going to go with 3 bedrooms just because that is the most common thing that I see people need. On a 3-bedroom rental, now this does include apartments and homes, the median rent this year was $1,897, so just under $1,900 a month. And that's a 19% increase from last year. So if you've had to re-sign a lease, I know that hurts. And again, that includes apartments too. Most of the time when you're purchasing, it's going to be a house. There are some condos and townhomes. But I would say probably at least 90% of the time it's going to be a house. So if we're talking houses only, I would definitely put that at a minimum of $2,000 a month is what we're looking at median. There are some higher, some lower. Similar thing has happened with purchase prices. So the median sales price for a 3-bedroom home in the Chattanooga area this year, right, this portion of the year is $300,000. That's up from $275,000 last year. So there's already been a $25,000 increase just from last year. And last year was when rates were crazy low and everyone was buying well above list price. So to see that increase, even with rates kind of leveling out, is a little bit jarring. So that's the benefit of home ownership too, right? Is while it continues to go up, you're now benefiting from that being your equity instead of having to shell out more rent and more rent and more rent. Your payment is staying the same. So that's what's helpful across the board. As far as what's promised and getting in a little bit cheaper, if we're running with just those numbers, so I'm going to round up the rental to $2,000 a month. Again, if you're looking at a house, depending on where it is, that may be even on the low side, unless you're lucky and you've been in it for a very long time. Most of the time when you go into a new rental, they're going to ask for a minimum of first month's, last month's, and then a deposit. If we're lucky and our deposit's $1,000 here, then that's $5,000, right? So then we switch to homes. Homes get a little more complicated. Most of the time you're going to do a down payment, and those vary depending on your loan type. Most common first-time home buyers do an FHA loan. And that's if there's not one that is the state specific that you're doing, but just standard across the board, FHA is common. We personally did that, and that is normally a 3.5% down. So if we're looking at a $300,000 house, that's $10,500. And I know what you're thinking. Whoa, Kelly, that's more than twice. You lied to us. Yes and no. So with that, also consider that most renters are going to move at least every 3 years. So you may be moving every year, every 2 years. When you go to move from a rental, you're paying all of those deposits and first and last month again. Whereas when you move from one home to the next, most people are going to sell that first home and use the equity they have in that home to cover their next down payment. So they're not coming out of pocket at all. In some cases, they're getting money back. The other thing that's nice about buying is that you usually have 30 to 45 days from the time that you close on your house until your mortgage is due. So instead of having to go ahead and pay that first month up front before you even live there, instead you're getting a grace period and you don't have to pay it other than, your closing costs and your down payment until, a month, potentially up to 2 after you buy the house. But those again are with typical minimum down payments. The nice thing is that there are loan types also that allow for 0% down. It depends on where you're looking. So some of them are for rural areas. There's one that's specific to the state of Tennessee. But then FHA just rolled out a new program as well that offers a 0% down, and it does not have the same area and income limits as the other loan types that would be 0% down. So that's really the kicker there too, is not only is it less money over the course of time, but there are some options where we can get you into a house with no down payment at all. So then you're only looking at closing costs. If you are able to find a house that does not have multiple offers, which I can definitely help with, then sometimes we can get the sellers to cover those closing costs. I've actually had buyers have absolutely no money out of pocket to purchase a home. And then, they're able to take that time that their mortgage isn't due yet to go ahead and have their rental and their new home for 30 days together, move over time, and it doesn't cost anything extra. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely get with me. Again, a lot of it as far as the payments and running the numbers is going to be very specific to you and your situation. So I don't want it to be something where you think it's going to save you a whole lot of money right now, but long-term, your rent is going to go up and your mortgage is not. So keep that in mind as well. But if your biggest barrier to home ownership is coming up with the closing costs and that down payment, just know that there are options where that might not be necessary at all. And I think that is something that's huge and has helped a ton of people. If you'd like more information, again, give me a shout. If you have any questions, I know this is a lot that I just threw at you. I'm a visual learner. I didn't give you any graphs or numbers. So if you'd like those, I can get those to you and we'll see what we can do to get you in a home.